Hello guys, and welcome back to the channel. I want to start by saying a huge thank you to everyone who supported the channel. We set a target to hit 100 subscribers by the start of the season, and we've got there a week early. I guess the next milestone is 1,000, so if you'd like to be a part of the channel getting there, and you're enjoying the content, please like and subscribe. In this video we're going to look at some of the best budget midfielders that could help you enable your squad, as well as some you might want to avoid. Let's get into it. The first player we're going to look at is Mohamed Kudus at 6.5 million. I would probably have him higher if it wasn't for the fixtures at the start of the season. There are a lot of better fixtures to attack with other players, and they have a new manager this season, so unsure entirely if the team will click straight away. One positive is the additions West Ham have made in the transfer market. They've bolstered their attack with the signings of Somerville from Leeds and Füllkrug from Champions League side Dortmund. Bone is probably the main man, but I'm sure Kudus will benefit from the increased firepower. He's fully capable of creating something out of nothing, as he showed against Freiburg last season, scoring the goal of the tournament in the Europa League. He was also doing it in the Prem though. He scored 8 goals and got 9 assists. One of those goals would have had Arsenal fans dreaming in the last game week when he opened scoring against City with a bicycle kick. He doesn't often complete the 90 minutes, but he does have good stats regardless, shown in his points per 90, 4.96. He also outperformed his expected goals and expected assists last season, actuals being 0.29 goals per 90 and 0.33 assists per 90, and over the first 5 he's predicted 19.2 points by Fantasy Football Hub. More tough opening fixtures for Wolves and Chan, with Arsenal, Chelsea, Newcastle and Villa in the first 5. Another costing 6.5, he did most of his damage at the start of the season before suffering an injury and didn't really pick up the same form after. A great enabler nonetheless. He was involved in 38% of Wolves' goals when he was playing, shown in big chance involvement data, scoring 12 himself and outperforming his expected goals with an actual of 0.51 per 90, meaning he was bagging once every 2 games. He also had one of the highest points per 90 from last season in the list with 5.30, and he's predicted to get 22.2 points in the first 5 despite the tough fixtures. Wolves have some other cheap options in attacking positions in Cunha and Neto, but Chan is probably the best option to go for if you're set on a Wolves player. Be wary though that there are much better options fixture-wise from other teams. Next on the list is Forest's Callum Hudson-Odoi. He may not be the only Forest player in the list, so stick around and find out who else could make an appearance. The first in the list that costs less than 6.5 million, he comes in at 5.5, so if you need that extra million somewhere else, he's a great option. I think the players priced at 6.5 offer much more value personally, but we shouldn't just ignore players like Callum Hudson-Odoi. He actually had greater points per 90 data with 5.29, one of the best amongst the players in this list. It's just he gets significantly less minutes than most of the other players we're going to have in the list. When you look at his expected goals and assist data, it doesn't really look impressive at all, but he did outperform the data, at least in terms of goals at 0.39 per 90, scoring 8 goals over the season. He's predicted to start the first 5 with a points total of 20.4, better than Kudus, but this is probably largely to do with the fixtures. I'm the type of player that's pretty driven by fixtures and will choose my team based on weighing up how good I think the player is and how easy their fixtures appear to be. If you're the type of FPL player that just wants to pick the best players without factoring in who they're playing, that's also a viable way of playing the game. It's whatever you feel like the most fun at the end of the day. I like looking at the data. You might be an eye test player who picks based on what they see and do. Let me know in the comments which way you prefer to play. Rodgers got into the Villa team at the end of last season and definitely made the most of his opportunity. He's carrying on his end of season form in the pre-season, scoring 3 goals and getting 2 assists. He even started a game up front and had a goal disallowed. This obviously won't be happening normally when the season starts and Watkins is back in the team after his summer at the Euros. His position is looking to be out on the right wing mainly, and I'm expecting his minutes to increase by a considerable amount this season. He's the cheapest on the list at 5 million, and in my opinion the best choice to have at that bench rotation midfielder that you don't need to play every week. Significantly better than any other 4.5 mids at the moment. Really think he's going to kick on this season, and he's been in most if not all of my drafts, playing in a great Villa team with a great Villa manager that's sure to get the best out of him. Next is Szoboszlai. This is a player I most struggle placing in the list, not because I think he's a bad player and shouldn't be in the list, but because of all the changes at Liverpool, new manager and all the other options in the forward and midfield positions at the club. It looks like Slot wants to play him in the 10, which will be his best position, and if we hear some more news that he's a favourite to nail down the starting spot, he could jump up the list. There's a lot of competition though, with McAllister, Gakpo, even Gravenberch could all play in that position, and another player we'll get onto a bit later. If he's going to be playing further forward, he could be a great option. He loves a thunderbolt from outside the box if you like exciting players, but unfortunately you don't get extra points for worldies. Liverpool probably have some of the best opening fixtures of all the teams in the league, with Ipswich, Brentford, Forest and Bournemouth all in the first 5. They also play Man United, and although it pains me to say, they've had some good games against us in the recent years. Despite being a Man United fan, I haven't found a single United player in any of my drafts so far. FPL doesn't reward you for loyalty, Boris, I suppose. If I was going to go for a budget United player, it would be Garnacho. He's become one of the regulars in the team, and he scored 7 goals and got 7 assists last season, most memorably that overhead kick against Everton. One of the best goals I've ever seen. Where does it rank in terms of the best overhead kicks? He's still quite a raw player, so it could be frustrating as an FPL asset, as he doesn't always finish off his chances you'd expect him to. He managed a points per 90 of 4.58 last season, slightly less than the other players we've seen, but he's predicted 22.9 points in the first 5, which is one of the highest in the list. Who knows what United we're going to get this season? You might want to hold off and see how they start. Johnson has probably some of the best data out of all the budget mids, especially in terms of big chance involvement. He's involved in more than one big chance every 90. He's got 12 assists last season, 0.46 per 90, outperforming his expected assists of 0.17. He didn't do the same when it came to scoring himself though, only 0.19 goals per 90 from an expected of 0.4. 5.06 points per 90 shouldn't be sniffed at, and he's predicted 23.3 points in the first 5. Spurs have a mixture of fixtures at the start of the season with Leicester, Everton and Brentford, but also Newcastle, followed by a North London derby against Arsenal. Look for what Spurs do in the transfer market before making a decision on him, I'd say. Watch for his competition from Kulusevski, who's probably the biggest threat for minutes in his position. Now we're getting into the top 3, and here's another Forest player I was talking about earlier. He's a million more than Hudson-Odoi, but definitely worth it if you've got the funds. Gibbs White is absolutely nailed in the team, playing 37 games last season, and a penalty taker at 6.5 million is a dream. He more often than not plays the full 90 as well, and trust me, you don't want players you're unsure about in your team when it comes to minutes. One of the best things to look for in your budget players is how much time they spend on the pitch. They're no use if you're constantly having to guess whether they're going to play or not. I can't stress enough you don't want to fill your team with rotation risks no matter how good you might think they are when they do actually play. Like Liverpool, Forest have some of the best opening fixtures with Bournemouth, Southampton, Wolves and Brighton in their first 5, and he's predicted 20.8 points in those first 5 games. His points per 90 may be lower than some of the others in the list at 4.04, but I would really struggle to look past those fixtures. And remember, more minutes usually means more points. Second, I've got Leon Bailey. So as well as 2 Forest players, we have 2 Villa players. He scored 10 goals and got 11 assists last year, scoring 148 points. And he had a huge points per 90 of 6.43. That's up there with some of the best players in the game. The only issue with Bailey is his minutes. He plays near enough every game, but only averages 59 minutes per appearance. If he starts to see more minutes, he could be one of the best options by far. He's involved in a goal nearly every game, and with Diaby leaving for Saudi, he could increase those minutes this season. Bailey's been in my draft from day one, but funnily enough, I've sort of swayed to only having one of Salah or Haaland very recently, and he seems to be the one that makes the way for one of the other premium midfielders. It has a lot to do with the guy that's at number 1, and I think there's a possibility that I may only be going for one of them come the start of the season. I think how many of these budget mids you have in game week 1 is highly dependent on Salah and Haaland. If you want to have both in your team, you're more likely going to have 3 of these players in your team because of the money situation. But if you only go for one of the big boys, you might realistically be choosing between one or two, because you'll be able to look at more of the premium midfielders in Saka, Foden, even Fernandes or Odegaard. Anyway, let's move on to who I think is the best budget midfielder in the game, and it's Nkunku. Chelsea have a great set of fixtures that extend past the first 5, including West Ham, Leicester, Everton and Wolves. He started pre-season very well, scoring 3 goals and getting an assist, and if we have a quick look at his data from last season, you can see he's potentially a great asset to have. As I'm sure you're aware, he suffered an injury last season, ruling him out for most of it. That's why his minutes are so low. Expect them to fly up this season. Despite the lack of minutes, when he does play, he's involved in a big chance every game and is expected to score once every 2 games. His points per night is second only to Bailey's with 5.96. He's another one that hasn't left my draft yet, but that has a lot to do with the fact I haven't had Cole Palmer in at all. I think that if Nkunku could stay fit, there won't actually be much difference between them come the end of the season, so saving 4 million is a no-brainer. But then again, who's to say you can't have both? If you think they're the best options and Chelsea are banging in the goals, then why not double up? So, that's my top 10 budget midfielders for Game Week 1. If you're still with me, hit the like button to let me know you're enjoying the content. I feel like I can't end the video of at least shouting out a few honourable mentions. Harvey Elliott could potentially be a great option this year, and maybe the reason why I have Szoboszlai as low as I did. They played together against Betis in a pre-season friendly, but Slot has said that this won't be the plan for the regular season and that both would get minutes in the 10 role. Smith Rowe's move to Fulham has highlighted him as a viable budget option this season at 5.5, and he's already scored in pre-season debut for the club. Semenyo is another one to watch. Less noticeable than the Bournemouth talisman Solanke, but does a great job of his own, scoring 8 goals and getting 4 assists last season. Another Fulham player in Pereira. He's been considered to be one of the best budget options in FPL since his move from Man United, and Fulham have some nice fixtures to start with 2 of the promoted teams. And last but not least, we've got Newcastle's Murphy. He's having a great pre-season, scoring 4 goals and getting 2 assists, but can he make himself a permanent fixture in Eddie Howe's starting lineup? As well as all these wonderfully great options, you might want to avoid some players as well. Typically, defensive midfielders don't make the best FPL assets, and despite the likes of Rodri and Rice getting a reasonable amount of points, they are the players you need to own at the right time to benefit from this. They also take up valuable spots in your team for the teams they play for, and if you can only have 3 players from each team, do you really want Rice when you could have Saliba, Saka and Havertz? Probably not. Kobe Mainoo is another one. Don't get me wrong, I love him as a footballer, but he should not be taking up his place in your midfield. Ever so slightly longer video today. Let me know if you like the longer style videos, and please subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying the content, and comment down below what the other videos you'd like to see. You can check out my other videos here, and you can follow me on socials. Catch you in a bit.